Israel has launched attacks on Lebanon and Syria, while Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited IDF soldiers and their injured comrades.
Tens of thousands of demonstrators across Europe step out in support of Palestinians and an immediate ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war.
Israel has launched new attacks on targets in Lebanon and Syria. Hezbollah said 7 of its fighters were killed in Lebanon. The Israel Defense Forces, or IDF, claimed it hit a Syria-based organization it said was behind a drone attack on a school in Eilat on Thursday. An IDF spokesman said it was operating in any area that threatened Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited IDF forces, including an artillery base, and also met injured soldiers at a medical centre in Ashkelon, telling them their friends were hitting Hamas hard. Hamas says the death toll, mainly Palestinian civilians, has surpassed 11,000 in Gaza. In the Saudi capital Riyadh, Syria's president arrived ahead of an emergency summit of the Arab League. It has called for a complete ceasefire in Gaza.
London's Vauxhall Bridge packed with pro-Palestinian demonstrators. Organisers say more than 800,000 people turned out for what was the biggest rally in the British capital since the Israel-Hamas war began, a little over a month ago. More than 2,000 police officers were mobilised to oversee the march on Saturday, following Armistice Day ceremonies. While the Assistant Commissioner to London's Metropolitan Police said there were, quote, no issues with pro-Palestinian marchers, clashes between officers and counter-protesters, including some far-right groups, are reported. Over 100 people were arrested. Across to mainland Europe, tens of thousands of people marched through Brussels, demanding an immediate ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. Families and children also joined the peaceful march, which passed close to EU government buildings. And in Paris, demonstrators took to the streets ahead of Sunday's rally against anti-Semitism, which has divided French political parties. France has the largest Jewish population in Europe. This after the Interior Ministry said it has recorded more than 1,150 anti-Semitic acts since the 7th of October.
Saudi Arabia is hosting an Arab Islamic summit aimed at unifying efforts to end the war between Israel and Hamas militants before the conflict draws in other countries. The Arab League and Organization of Islamic Cooperation were initially scheduled to hold their meetings separately, but the Saudi Foreign Ministry announced early on Saturday that the two summits would be held jointly. The meeting comes 5 weeks into the conflict that's already claimed the lives of more than 12,000 people, most of them civilians. Aid groups have joined pleas for a ceasefire, warning of a humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. But Israel and its main backer, the United States, continue to rebuff their demands.
They're mobile and can fire a hypersonic missile with a 3,800-kilogram warhead at targets up to 500 kilometers away. Ukraine says a Russian Iskander system was used to target Kyiv on Friday night, damaging 18 homes when it was shot down. Celebrations in Kherson to mark the first anniversary of the city's liberation. It fell into Russian hands on March the 3rd, 2022. Even as they celebrate, Kherson citizens live under the shadow of war. The telltale crackle across the Dnieper River gives them just 7 seconds to find shelter from Russian shelling that's targeting heat and power infrastructure as winter looms. A Ukrainian driver died on its western border where 20,000 lorries were hit by a blockade set up by Polish truckers angered by what they see as unfair competition.
A volcanic eruption in or near the city of Grindavik in Iceland could start at any time in the next few days, the country's Met Office has warned. Experts say the magma corridor beneath the city is now 15 kilometers long and in some places just 800 meters below the surface. The full-scale evacuation of Grindavik's 4,000 residents started on Friday after a dense swarm of almost 800 earthquakes was recorded in the space of just 14 hours.